one of the things we talk about is how when you get a devastating diagnosis for your child, whether it's terminal, as it was in my case, or cancer, at which point it's life-threatening and you don't know what the outcome will be, parents are thrust into this new land, this foreign land, this scary place, completely disoriented with no guide to lead them. There's not like a what to expect the way when you're having a child. And how have you thought about what parents sort of at a macro level, how would you describe what parents need as they begin this journey? If you were talking to a newly diagnosed, a family whose child had been newly diagnosed with cancer or another life-threatening condition, what would some of your first words of counsel be to them?
I think get to know the people in your new environment. And I think that's why, of whom there are enormous numbers of different people who will show up. Sort of get to know a little bit who they are, that they're people, and that they have different styles probably, but some of which you'll be more comfortable with than others. But that to get to know them, as well as the sort of the environment of the hospital. That was all going on at the same time they're trying to take care of what's going on at home as well. So it's a huge challenge. I would think other parents can be enormously helpful in that situation. And actually, one of the drawbacks of having a wonderful new hospital with rather a lot of individual rooms is that there's less obvious places for parents to get together and to talk and to learn from each other, which certainly, I've observed very, very much over the years. So using the resources, there is, resource specialists, social workers, psychologists who are on the, usually on the unit where you will be with your child, and sort of making use of them as well, because they will have, you will have your particular needs. They may be the people, or the nursing, or your primary nurse, who will be able to tell you what is available, what isn't available, where you can go, what you can do, and may actually be helpful in getting it for you. So it's sort of orienting, finding out who's around and what's around, and how to make the best use of them that works for you.
What about for the families for whom, at least for the beginning, it's not going to be a highly medicalized process? Like, certainly with cancer, and I appreciate, it's important to note that your primary background has been in oncology and transplant. But for families for whom it's not about hospitalization, or at least not typically, it sort of take it up a notch where it's not just about the medical care of the child, but the whole psychosocial realm that is suddenly really threatened when your child could die. What do you say to families? What would you sort of have families think about on that psychosocial level?
I would say that could depend. An awful lot of my book says it depends.
Yes.
So what I'm saying now is going to be it depends.
Yes.
But on the age of the child, how physically affected they are, because some conditions, they may not be that affected they immediately, that they may continue to be able to go to school. And in a situation where it's possible, I would hope that the parents would consider how they could continue to have as normal a life as the family possibly can have under the circumstances, which might include, the child continuing to go to school, having friends over in the way that they had been, keeping the friends that they had. So in some ways, keeping life as normal as it can be, while at another level, most likely, particularly for the parents, not necessarily for the child, considering planning, depending on who the parents are, how things will be as the child's condition gets worse.
And what would you say about the role of psychotherapy and psychosocial support from, we can talk, well, we can get a little more deeper into it in terms of, you talk very eloquently towards the end about, indicators that you really need help. Like what are the red signs. But just before there are even red signs, sort of in the opportunity, encouragement, or invitation to maybe get a little help so you don't feel like you have to cope all by yourself.
I would say that probably would be, particularly if the diagnosis down the road is likely to be terminal, and that the child is likely to die, to get an outside person involved, a therapist, who is experienced in that area. Because very often parents do have different styles of dealing with a particular awful situation, and they need to observe their own styles and the styles of the person who they're living with, because it may be different and that may be really annoying to one of the people. And also it will feel more of a personal affront than it's intended to be, as opposed to a life-saving device for the other person. Mm-hmm. So the more that can be understood, and it may be very difficult to notice that on one's own, and certainly a therapist would be very able to help you notice.